How can you play better golf without changing your golf swing? That's what we're going to find out in this video. And to help us, we have a special guest. Now, most of you watching this will know Nick Dougherty from fronting up the Sky Sports golf coverage, but also from his Tee Time Tips videos that he releases on Instagram that have been so popular with so many golfers. If you haven't already seen them, please do head over and check them out. But by the end of this video, we want to give you some inspiration. So 5 simple action points that will help you improve your scores without you needing to head to the range and make major swing changes. Now, the way in which this video is going to work is that Nick is going to play 3 holes here at Wentworth on the West Coast with an amateur golfer. This is somebody who's played golf for the last 30 years. He's struggling with his game, but he doesn't really have the time or frankly the inclination to head to the range and go through that sort of swing rebuilding process. So effectively, we're challenging Nick to come up with the easiest and simplest ways to help our golfer improve. Now, the last thing to say is that this video is coming to you in association with TaylorMade. They sponsor Nick, and they've also kitted out our amateur golfer. Speaking of which, I think it's time to meet the man in question, Mike Harris. Okay, so Mike Harris, our amateur golfer for the day, 10 handicapper. Yep. Right. You've been playing golf for 30 years. Correct. Is that right? Yep. Tell us, what is it that's ultimately going wrong with your golf game at the moment you think Nick might be able to help you with?
I think it's a really interesting one. So like everyone, I want to play better golf, but I think as I've got older and I realise where golf fits into my life, I actually just want to play well in the important rounds when it matters, whether it's a medal or a club championships or a trip away with friends. And I've also realised that I don't have the time to really invest to get a lot better technically. So I suppose I want to limit the mistakes. I know my better rounds, when I look at my R-cost data, would tend to be the rounds where I'm not having doubles and trebles in there. It's not so much about making loads of birdies. It's about, I guess, playing to my strengths and not making those silly mistakes. I'm hoping that Nick can offer me some advice on how to make the most of my game, how to, I guess, enjoy golf more. And you enjoy golf more by playing, I think, fewer bad shots.
So specifically, where do you think is the biggest area of, let's call it an opportunity?
Biggest opportunity probably to be less bad would be in my iron play. I'm very inconsistent on my iron play and my short game as well. Used to feel like I had a really good short game, completely deserted me. It's coming back a little bit, but I still don't get up and down anywhere near often enough.
So let's set Nick the challenge. Can Nick help Mike play better golf without swinging the golf club any better? Let's go find out. Okay, so Nick, you've played 3 holes with Mike.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting experience watching the various different bits of advice that you've given Mike along the way. And we're going to divide this part of the video up into 5 different sections. And Nick, I wanted to talk to you about, in this first section, about managing stress and nerves. Because I think part of Mike's issue is that he wants to play well, but he's not fussed really about playing well all the time, but he wants to play well when it matters. So what advice would you give people about managing their nerves around the course?
I think it's an overall mentality, and sure, we all want to play well, you know, when we go away for that trip or when we play in that club championship or whatever it may be. But unfortunately, it's like a wet bar of soap. The more we want it, the more it tries to get away from us. So I think a lot of it comes down to acceptance, first of all. You can only do what you can do. You can only be the best that you can be with the game that you have. And accepting that golf is a hard game, first of all. And it's going to go wrong. You're going to hit shots that don't work out. You're going to do lots of things right that don't get the results that you expect they're going to do. But there are a few little things that you can do on the golf course that can assist. So, for instance, you know, one of the things with Mike there was with the putter, and he said to me on the 10th hole here at Wentworth that I have the birdie putts, and I sort of think, yeah, I really want these ones because I know I need it because it'll get me going. But the fact of the matter is, you need to again accept that every single putt is worth exactly the same. If it's for a 2 or a 7, we still want it because it's still worth the whole shot. So that, first of all, just a little bit of logic can put that to bed. But then after that, getting out your own way. And so for Mike, it was all about trying to have something to think about that takes him away from thinking about the meaning of making or missing that putt.
Right.
So we use something really simple for him, which will, one, help his stroke. So physiologically, it's a nice thing to do as well. And it was the simple act of saying back, roll as he hit it. So you say back in the backswing, roll as you go through. Because if you're thinking about saying those words, you're then also...
Are you saying that out loud?
You can't,
yeah.
I would do. But,
Right.
you know, granted, you know, someone's going to give you a bit of grief in your 4-ball maybe if you start talking to yourself when you're playing. But it absolutely, say it inside, don't take nothing else. You still have to focus on it as you're doing it, saying back and roll. And it takes your mind away from thinking about the outcome and puts you into the process of doing what you're doing. So you're not worried about if it goes in because you're just thinking about this.
The great thing about this is you can be a top golfer, or you can be somebody who's just starting out the game. Managing nerves, managing your stress is a really important part of the game. That should really help. Okay, so the next one is about figuring out your yardages and picking the right club. And Nick, as a pro, as somebody who's done this so many times in the past, there's an awful lot more to this, as I discovered as we were working our way around the golf course today, than the kind of, I guess most amateurs would maybe give it credit for. So what are the things that amateurs should be doing more often that they don't currently do to find the right yardage, find the right club?
Well, find the right yardage would be the first one.
Right.
Because a lot of the time, if you use some sort of a rangefinder or use a smartwatch or whatever you use to get your distance, you can get a yardage to a flag, but that's not really it. So if the flag, for instance, here on 18, you're hitting a wedge shot and it's 135 to go to the flag. Well, 135 is not your yardage. Most of your yardages need to be your carry distances, because you can't say, oh, with roll it goes this, because every course you play, if it's in the middle of winter and it goes boop, or in the middle of summer on a links course, so it's going to bounce 15 yards further on, your yardages would always change. And hitting a 5-iron into a green is going to be different to hitting a sand iron into a green. So, you know, just having the exact number, you need to calculate what that is. So if we're hitting a 5-iron into the last green, I'd need to take 10 yards off at least my landing point. So if the yardage was 205 to the flag, actually my carry yardage is 195 because that's where I need to land it.
Right.
And then you've got to take into account as well wind direction, slope as well. And one of the things I noticed when Mike was on the 11th hole, he had 113, I think he had. And I said, well, go on, what else are we working out here? And he said, well, it's uphill. And so, yeah, and what's that? And you could tell he just like, it's playing further, you know, which is he's right. No, he's right. Yeah. But we need more, right? We do need more, because the difference between success and failure can be quite a fine margin in this game. And I know from having used rangefinders, but also all the years of playing the game, within a yard or two, what a slope is. But a lot of the rangefinders now, you can find that, or you know, you can find devices that will give you that sort of information. So it was 5 uphill. So it's not 112. Or 113, I think it was 113. It's 118. It was into the wind there as well. And so when we play in the wind, most people, any sort of breeze, will say it's 10 yards or it's a club of wind. You saying the wind's the same strength every time you've played there's been wind at the same strength? No, it's always different. But a nice thing you can do, you can always use your phone now to find out what the speed of the wind is going to be across the day. And let's say, for instance, it is 10 miles per hour, the wind. If it's downwind, this is a generalization, but it's really close to the truth. It's about a yard per miles per hour. So if it's 10 mile an hour downwind, it's going to play about 10 yards less.
Okay.
Into the wind though, it's double. So if you're playing it into a 10 miles per hour wind, it's 2 yards per mile per hour.
Right.
So it's 20 into. Yet most people, I'd hazard a guess, would say, well, if it's a club down, it's a club into. And it's not. It's double the difference. And again, it's a generalization, but it's remarkably close to being factual in terms of the way that a wind will affect the balls. So it's really important to calculate those things, pick your landing point as well, know where you want to land it, take the slope into all that as well. And that gives you a number. And only when you've done all that work, before you even take the club back, can you honestly say, I know what the distance is. And regardless of who you are, if you're John Rahm or you and I, we all have the same ability as John Rahm before we move the club. So we can do this. This is not really, it's not rocket science.
No.
But it does take a bit of learning and remembering to do the right processes. So for Mike there, we just said, well, make it easier, have more control, because actually as much as the total number we've got now is correct for how it's playing, we need to hit a shot that we can get there without having to swing out of our shoes, especially into the wind.
So, I mean, there are some mistakes in there that I know that I make, and I'm sure many of you do too. Picking the right club, there is more to it than just saying, that's a one club wind. Use some of Nick's tips there, it should really help. Okay, so the next one, Nick, is kind of, feels a bit more technical, but it's something that everyone needs to get right and can do probably better. Talk us through first you can talk us through the importance of posture.
If you've got poor posture, and for most of us, especially me, I'm terrible for it, because I do it when I'm sat in a chair as well, I'm this way. I just switch off. I come in this way, and when I'm tired, I naturally go like this, and then that goes to the golf course. Then when I'm on the course, next minute, I'm stood like I'm, 85 years of age, and everything's constricted when we get into this position. Nothing wants to turn properly, so we end up with lots of armsy swings. So I really like this because, if nothing else, it means that you can turn up and feel the same every time. It's like a reset button. And it's a super simple one. I like it because, one, it's easy to do, but also it's super easy to visualize, is the goalkeeper posture. I really, really like it. So if you were, Mo Salah's about to step up and take a penalty and you're on the goal line, how would you stand to take that, receive that penalty? You'd have the weight naturally in the balls of the feet. We're on a little bit of a slope here, so it's more challenging, but you'd have the weight naturally towards the balls of the feet, so you'd be athletic. There would be a little bit of bend in the knees. There'd be a nice little angle, the correct angle in the lower part of the spine there through the bum. And then when the chest would be nicely up, the chin would be slightly off the chest, but you wouldn't think of any of that. No. Whereas you go for lessons sometimes and you might get a pro and you'll be like a bit of that, a bit of that, a bit of that, get that knee twisted in it, and next minute you're like, okay, how's that? And oh my God, is this all I've got? And of course you're rigid because you're trying, aren't you?
But what about those people who feel like physically there's something restricting them?
If you think, well, I can't get into that position you are there, we don't have to get there. We can just do our best to get into a position that allows us to move as well as we can. You have to play around what you have in the locker, and a great coach will do that for you.
Yeah.
But we can, you still have to make the effort to be the best that you can be and still have it. If it's causing pain, it's no good.
Yeah, so, finding the right posture, vitally important, as Nick says. Hopefully that's simple and effective. Give it a go. Okay, so for this part, we're going to talk about short game. Nick, what did you think of Mike's short game, firstly?
I thought, what I really liked about it was there was the shot on the 12 where the pro shot, so the right shot, which is a dangerous way to label it, was landing it on the green, bit of check, roll it down to the hole, because otherwise you had to deal with this upslope to judge, then onto the flat, then onto the downslope. Seemed harder, but actually, Mike was just, I'd look at it and think, oh, I don't really fancy it. There's the tip in itself. Like, if you don't like it, then it's probably not going to work, because you're going to start to go down that hole. Yeah. And almost to the degree where before you've hit it, thinking, I know I'm going to be annoyed at myself because this isn't the right shot, because I don't like this. I knew I'd do that. If that's what comes out of your mouth, I knew I'd do that. That's on you, because you had a choice. If you knew you'd do it, why'd you do it? No one said you have to play this game a certain way. That's your choice. And there's a great satisfaction from doing it your own way. All the guys on tour do it that way. Yeah. They've all got a different strategy. And he played this lovely and beautiful shot as well, with a low iron and just scampered up the bank because he was comfortable. And something that's a bad decision with commitment will always do better than something that's a good decision without commitment. Right. I'd always try and land it a yard on the green. You can do it 2 yards, it can be anything you want, but I always try and think I'll land it a yard on the green. Like I did on the 10th hole. That was the shot sort of picked me there. Yeah. I didn't execute perfectly, but I was all in with the commitment to it. Then where the flag is tells me what club to play. Now, if it's right there and it's only sort of 3 or 4 on the green, it's that 60 degree, definitely, because I haven't got any room. If it's another 10 feet on, it might be a 56 or 52 degree. If it's across the other side of the green, it might even be a 5 iron or something like that, if you've got a nice lie to do it. Okay. But what I'm always doing is land it in the same place. So then all I need to do is have done enough practice and hit enough shots, which most of us have, to know roughly how far would a 7-iron run if I landed it there, roughly how far would my sand iron run or my 60 degree run if I landed it there, which doesn't take a lot of work. But what it does, it takes away all that indecision of where do I land it, what sort of shot, how high should I hit it. You just think, well, I've got to land it there and it's got to roll to there. So that would be a 52. Nice. So often people reach for too much loft. Actually, it's a higher tariff shot with that sort of club. Yeah, for me, it's the simplicity and the commitment. And if you can do both of those things, no doubt about it, you'll get it up and down more often. So Nick, the final area to talk to you about then is a bit of strategy and a bit of course management, something that you covered quite a bit with Mike during that 3-hole period. What was the sort of general advice that you're giving Mike? I think take your medicine is the best one. In terms of scoring, so often the big numbers come because we won't accept that we've made an error and we try to get it all back straight away. When you do hit it in trouble, looking at the lie, damage limitation. Okay, horrible lie, like Mike's ball there in the heather. Awful lie, tree in front of us. Well, yeah, the shot's the low one under the tree, but it can't physically come out of that. You can't lift it out of that, which needs loft. Yeah, you need but keep loft. It under that. Right. So just because you want it, Mike, fortunately, bud, it can't have it. So the first job is get it out of that, which means we can't do that. So now we have to make our decision. you've made that strategy shift before you've ever gone to, you know, pull the club out the bag and okay, that's the plan. I have to take it on the chin. That's what's happened. Chip it out, and then you build from there. Whereas the 8s and 9s and, you know, whatever else it may be come from that we tried to do more. And it's only worth a shot the same as the one you hit off the tee. So, you know, I think that's really important. The other shot we looked at when we were in there with Mike, and we had the opportunity, if the lie was clean, I think it's a nice little tip, just a bonus one, but if you're punching out through trees. When you're punching out through trees and there's a gap, don't aim for the gap. Picture a flag in the distance. It might be in the middle of the gap, assuming that's where we're going, right? In the middle of the gap. It's amazing how often we miss it when we just try and steer it through the gap.
Right.
Because we start to steer it like this towards it, rather than if it was a flag, we wouldn't try and steer it down the line. We'd make a swing towards the flag. So be really precise when you're picking a spot that's through a gap in the trees that you're aiming for, and then let it all hang out. Because if you aim small, miss small sort of mentality, and I think it will help people to find their way through that gap more often.
So there you have it. Play smart, shoot lower scores, simple. So that's us finished. Mike, you've played your 3 holes with Nick. From what I could see, just so much really helpful information in there. What did you find to be most useful, do you think, of the stuff that Nick was telling you?
So it's really interesting. There was so much good stuff that I actually had to make some notes on my phone and write it all down. I guess the most technical thing that Nick said, two things were check my alignment, and I know I need to do that better. I tend to stand a bit closed, and then with my posture he gave me the really cool tip of, and I used to be a goalkeeper when I was a kid, have that goalkeeper posture ready to try and save a penalty. So those are 2 things that are really easy to remember. Don't need to do anything changing my swing. He talked as well about, if I start to overthink, concentrate on your breathing. He said if you are breathing and in as you're addressing the ball and out as you swing, that's actually what you'll then think about. You're not thinking about all the technical stuff. He just said be in on every shot. And I think what Nick was saying there is just really commit to it. Have a line, have a target, and then commit to the shot. Don't poke it, don't be nervous.
Last question then, Mike. So 10 handicapper,
Yep.
of all the advice that Nick has given to you then, what does success look like then for you?
I think success would be playing under my handicap, at whatever that handicap was at that given point, in a round that really mattered.
So there you have it. That completes our look at how you might just be able to shoot lower scores without changing your golf swing. Some fantastic advice from Nick Dougherty. As I said at the beginning, if you haven't checked out Tee Time Tips, do go over to Nick's Instagram, have a look. You'll find loads of great information on how to do everything better in the golf game, frankly. But that's it for now from Wentworth. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.